Hi guys, and welcome back to another week of DXV podcasting with Nye, Chris, and Ollie. This week we'll be talking about Investec Champions Cup action from this weekend, as well as the Women's Six Nations, and most importantly, the return of the Gallagher Premiership next week. So yeah, guys, what do you think? Last weekend's game. So we had the Investec Champions Cup, round 16. We had Gloucester Ospreys, Bordeaux Quins, Leinster, La Rochelle, Northampton Bulls, and Toulouse Exeter. What are your guys' thoughts on any of those games? Any kind of favourite games or any standout players?
I think the big news is the Quins Bordeaux game. That's the one kind of no one really saw coming except me. If you look at last week's podcast, I did say Quins would do it. Just call me the Oracle, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, not a result that I think anyone saw. Some serious performance in there. Finn Baxter, Will Collier, like crazy in the scrum against what is probably one of the heaviest packs in the game, and just dominated. Like just really dominated. Tyrone Green, man of the match. Excellent performance all round. So I'm getting some love from the South Africans on rugby Twitter, because when he was asked, does he want to be in England or a South Africa player? 'Cause I think he's eligible for England in the this year on residency. When asked if he wants to be a Springbok or an England player, he said a Springbok for now, which obviously didn't go down well with many of the Bok fans.
Yeah. I'd like to mention Saints only because Ollie picked up the Bulls after their big win. And was kind of back them, and then Saints to run out 50 points on them.
Absolutely destroyed. Yeah.
But personally, I think the Leinster team, not the Ireland team. I mean, they're close enough, but yeah, they had a pretty impressive run out. I think they looked pretty complete. We've already mentioned Jameson Gibson Park had an absolute stormer. I'll shout it to them. Just because I backed them from last week, so I'm bigging up Chris's Oracle theme.
Yeah, no, it's a good weekend of rugby, actually. Some really high scores as well. Like, the score lines were massive, right? Like, usually in kind of a knockout rugby, it's associated with quite tight games, heavy defense, because, I mean, let's be honest, it's the stuff that wins tournaments, right? Yeah. Big shift. So, what was it, 41-42 to in the Quins game, Quins v Bordeaux? Yeah. Then you had what, like 40 something plus to what was La Rochelle again? I can't remember the top of my head.
So Leinster 40, La Rochelle 13.
Yeah, so that's a pretty comprehensive victory as well. Like La Rochelle, one of the biggest, most physical teams in the game.
And let's not forget, so that's a big rivalry as well, isn't it? So I think because O'Gara's the manager, isn't he?
La Rochelle, yeah.
Yeah, coach of La Rochelle. And they've met each other 2 years in a row now in, I think, the playoffs / final last year, where I think it was like 23-21 in the last, and there was a bit of controversy after that. And that was La Rochelle took both of those games, and to put 40 points past them this turn of handle, huge.
It was a pretty big statement.
Yeah.
I think La Rochelle didn't really turn up in the same way. And they've had a bit of a more of a tumultuous season. I mean, they're back-to-back champions, right? So they're always going to be taken seriously, but they haven't had the run-in they'd wanted. It's at home for Leinster as well in the Aviva. Makes quite a big difference.
Team Ireland.
Yeah, even then, huge score line to put on the back-to-back Champions Cup champions. Sorry. And then you had the Bulls, Northampton, again, crazy scoreline. Scoreline probably flattered the Bulls as well. I think like that one runaway intercept try put a bit of a gloss on it. But I think, if I'm not wrong in saying, like, Northampton held out the Bulls for the entirety of the second half.
No, 59-22 was the end score. That's huge again. Some pretty good standout performances there as well.
I think it was the first minute, that kick-off of that game against the Bulls. I think it was was it Mitchell that got charged down? It was straight off the kick-off.
Yeah. No, it was Was it Mitchell? Yeah, he did get charged
Yeah,
off.
No, it
so
was-
just
it
like
was-
charged off straight off the bat, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god! It was like the last thing you want is to sort of give something up in that first sort of 30 seconds. Somebody get their
Yeah.
tails up, and I was like, Jesus. Yeah,
The
that's
Bulls were in
interesting.
it for realistically for the first 20, probably. Like they were kind of in the game. There was a bit of trading blows, try for try. And then Saints just, I mean, they went in at halftime and were like, right. And they came out a different team, completely changed. Cameron Hannacum, though, for the Bulls, had a hell of a game. Like, what a player he is. Big, physical, strong carrier, smart lines, disruptive with the breakdown, kind of your complete 8. I know there's a kind of a lot of talk around the Bulls playing what was potentially not their
Yeah,
their
their
first
strongest.
50. Yeah. But even so, I mean, still a hell of a thing. Did you see the thing that Jake White did as well in the changing rooms after, which I thought was really nice? He went into Northampton's changing room and gave them kind of like kudos and wished them well in the champion stuff, and like gave them a little speech, which is quite nice, right? Like
that's strong.
he's kind of a legend of the game, and he walks in, and it's quite a nice thing for them.
Rugby values, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, what was it that I really like? That was a bit controversial, but you've seen the EPCR is now talking about investigating the Bulls for not taking the tournament seriously. Basically, there's like a rumor that I think it was someone at Times put out saying that they're kind of under investigation for. But how do you prove that? How do you like not say like this guy's carrying a niggle like this?
We said it 2 weeks ago. It's kind of like, what as a club do you prioritise? Do you prioritise your sort of position in a cup? Do you prioritise your team towards sort of where you want to be in your sort of Premiership or in the Championship? Sort of, are you pushing for top 4? Do you prioritise your little push to get in that top 4? Do you prioritise your cup? And you can't sort of fault him either way, really. I mean, you can investigate it, but at the same time, there's what's the outcome? It's kind of, why did you play him? He had a niggle. I wanted to give a youth some sort of experience.
Big game experience.
Yeah. How do you? Yeah. Be interesting.
Yeah. And then I think there was no surprise in the Toulouse game. Like the Toulouse game was, Exeter looked like they were in it until half time. I was sitting there. I remember going into this weekend. I was thinking this. It'll be like Harlequins or Exeter is possible, but there's no way it's a double. And I probably got a bit excited by it when it came half time at Toulouse and Exeter were still in the lead. I was like, okay,
it was
come now. Like this is.
There was definitely a point. I think the like the yellow card. Like, I think it was went to like 16-7 to like Exeter, and they had a yellow card, and I was like, Jesus, here we go. And it just never, it just sort of never came. At half time come, and suddenly it was 17-16, and then the second half just
complete Toulouse run over. DuPont doing DuPont things.
Yeah, I mean Kinghorn, to be fair.
Yeah, Kinghorn was incredible.
His offloading, like not only getting across the try line himself, like had a phenomenal game. I think Kinghorn.
He's so good at 15. Like I can see why Scotland tried him at 10, but he's such a good fullback. Like just really good positional play.
Just picking lines. He was great. Like, and not only I think he scored 2, but if you look back on like so many of the other tries, he's there as like the pass at the back, or he's there. He's involved in some way. He had a great game.
Yeah.
Jack Willis as well.
We've missed the game, guys. We've missed the game, and I don't know if Nye's done this purposefully, because it's Gloucester Ospreys, which I think we've missed. We didn't talk about it, did we? Because it's obviously it's the last Welsh team out the cup now. What are your thoughts on that, Nye?
Yeah. Anyway, back to the Toulouse game. No, I think it's Ospreys, and there's so much stuff that's I think come out of it recently, sort of like in the press. And if you see, I think Graham Henry's been back on podcasts, and he said again, just like too many teams in South Wales. And I've said it, like you've got 4 teams in Wales, and they're all in the same sort of 40-mile stretch of the M4. But Ospreys is probably one of the better team they've got there. And again, it's sort of different. You could sit there and look at the teams that have gone through now and say that there's no South African teams left. There's no, I mean, it's knockout rugby, it's cup rugby, it's where you want to be. I don't think it came as a massive surprise to anyone. I don't think Ospreys were the sort of huge favourites for that anyway. Is what it is.
I mean, they knocked out Sale, who were like, they knocked out Sale, my own team, out of the Old Cup. But
I
it's
actually didn't catch the game, and I can't remember what the highlights were like.
I did see one little thing from it though. Did you see Adam
think it
Hastings'
was-
little cheeky little nutmeg to himself around the back?
Oh,
It was
All through. It was a cheeky little bit of skill.
yeah.
sublime.
What was okay, to just kind of round it off, I guess. What was your kind of game of the weekend?
Bordeaux Quins gotta be. Gotta be close game.
Leinster.
To and fro. Came down to
Leinster.
a missed kick for Luku. Like
So I'm
Luku.
with you, mate. What a game! Like Jack Porter, I think had like awesome game. Like to get 2 tries, hold up a try as well. Again, like Don Brandt was just dangerous. Porter chip and try, like that little chip kick try, and then Esterhazy making that break in like the 2nd minute as well, just using the sideline. Yeah, it was a good game, and then Luku missing that conversion in it was like the 75th minute or something, wasn't it? It was
right at the end, and if you're Luku, I feel for him.
Yeah,
like that's not a comfortable place to be in the change room, and hopefully it's fine.
Sorry.
Did you see the umbrellas on the pitch as well, by the way? Did you
I
guys
didn't
catch
see
that?
I didn't see those.
Group chat. All I saw in the group chat was Chris banging on about umbrellas.
What's
it was meant
the
to,
crack with this then? What they bought umbrellas out.
So, yeah. So like with the water carriers, all the players all brought out like umbrellas with them as well. So they just had like a bunch of umbrellas stood in a huddle, keeping themselves out of the sun. It was crazy hot. To be fair, I think they said it was like pushing 30.
Yeah.
In Bordeaux, and there's a lot of chat from the commentators about how the English team's going to last in that kind of heat.
To go.
Well, I think Baxter played close to the full 80.
Yeah. To go to Bordeaux.
He played down near the full 80.
And beat them, right? That's big. Like not many teams do that, right? Go to the south of France and beat a French team. That's pretty big news. What to kind of round it off completely then, guys, what your guys' thoughts on kind of the final? Who you guys reckon is going to be in the final?
So who are the matches? You got Quins, Toulouse, Leinster, Northampton. So Leinster play at Croke Park, Quins play at Toulouse. So I think Northampton have a cheeky chance in Leinster. They could do it. Yeah, I think they could do it. It'll be a good game. I think it'll genuinely be a good game. It'll depend heavily on like Northampton's defense. It really will. On that evolved defense they've got. They're getting some of their players back in form. You saw Furbank come back into the 23 after his injury in the Six Nations. That starts to happen. The likes of Hendy, Slightholme. I think that's going to be a heck of a game. But going away to Dublin and coming away with a win is a big ask, but then again, it's no bigger of an ask. Harlequins versus Toulouse. Yeah. Like Toulouse are incredible. They play such a difficult to stop style of rugby in the sense of like just offloads out of nowhere, support runners everywhere. You've got jackal threats across the park, Imovaka, Marchand, Willis, like cross. They can all. It's going to be. And Quins again play a similar. That, by the way, is something I'm excited about as a matchup next week. Will Evans versus Jack Willis, 2 of kind of England's top jacklers, just going head to head. I think that's going to be one hell of a matchup. Then you've got Ntamak against Marcus Smith. You've got Danny Kerr against Dupont. I mean, all due respect to Danny Kerr, legend of the English game, but Dupont is Dupont.
I'm personally, I would love to see just like contradicting styles, and you look at sort of what is an Ireland v France and a Leinster Toulouse final. I think would be you've literally got Ireland v France in the sort of way they play. Toulouse, like the offloads, that sort of really flashy sort of rugby. Leinster's just a clinical, like they're so again, you can see it sort of in that English side. Anytime they got in that sort of 22, put points over, put stuff away, they're really So I think it's a really interesting round, and I think both games could go either way. You absolutely can't write Saints off. Look what they've just done to the Bulls. At the same time, it's a hard away game in Ireland. Quins they've just shown that they can come through a tight and difficult game. But I personally, and God, I'm going to get roasted for this online for next week. But yeah, Leinster to lose final. I'm going to call it now.
I'm with
gonna
you.
go. I'm
with
going the
you.
other way. I'm gonna go Quins Saints. Think upset.
All
All Prem final.
All Prem final.
Cool. So that ties that off. And then Six Nations. So Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales, and France, Italy. Any key moments from those games, guys?
I think it was. I think we called it last week when we said that the France Italy game was going to be exciting. I did expect not just going Welsh, but I did expect the sort of Ireland Wales maybe to be a bit closer than it was. We backed Red Roses from the sort of beginning. I know Scotland have played relatively well up until sort of now, but yeah, England comprehensive start to finish defence. I mean, it's rare now that you don't even take sort of a penalty against you. So to run out sort of 46-0 and to take nothing in was impressive. Wales, I'll be honest, sort of didn't show up. There was a couple of sort of cheap tries, the charge down that they sort of gave away. France, Italy came out again, sort of similar to what they did with England, actually. Held it for the first sort of 20-30 minutes, didn't do terrible, but France just sort of pulled it away. So it makes for a really, really interesting table, unless you're a Welsh fan, that is.
Yeah.
Could Wales do the double?
This is bad.
The double spoon.
Oh, Hugh is going to be mad.
No, I think, to be fair, like I caught the beginning of the Red Roses game, and I loved that. Although it's like terrible idea in rugby, and don't ever do it again. But I can't remember which player it was, but it was for the Kildun try. Just goes over, great footballing skills, just like on the ground, tucks it across, and Kildun just gets there. Yeah, fantastic little bit of skill, little bit of luck in there, gets the score as well. Jess Breach, after not having scored in the first two rounds, gets the double as well. So yeah, good game for the Red Roses. To be honest, I'm not sure. The only, and this is maybe harsh to the other teams, I don't mean it to be, but like in that tournament, I'm not sure there's another team that can stack up against the Red Roses at that point, and that's just because they're further down the line in terms of like professionalism, the strength of the PWR, how well that goes for them, and you're starting to see more of the internationals play in the PWR as well, so that'll kind of spread that love a little bit more around the championship. Maybe the French, but even then, if they're on their day,
that's the matchup. I think that's the matchup to come. If you look at the table, England 3 from 3, France 3 from 3. So that's the game. I think, like you said, what I've seen of the Red Roses and what I've seen of France, I mean, still heavy favourites in the Red Roses there. But yeah, and that'd be the game of it so far, I think.
For me, it's big, isn't it? Like BBC ran an article over the weekend. I think it was Maggie Alfonsi came out and was like, actually, the Red Roses, like being so strong, is almost detrimental to the Six Nations, the Women's Six Nations, because it just seemingly it's just like the other teams just don't have really a chance.
It's a competition for second.
Yeah.
And there could be a case that it's a competition for third, because France are really strong for the next strongest. So then it's between the rest for third, and that's not what you want from a competition. Like the reason we love the Quins Bordeaux game is because it's close, right? There's drama right till the very end. You want to be sat on the end of your seat, unless you're a Quins fan. Like you want to be sat on the end of your seat, kind of like just desperate for it to happen. And when it's 40 some odd points, and this isn't like all credit to the Roses, right? They're a great team. Congratulations, very well done. It's not their fault. It's not like the other team's fault either. It's just a case of, I think the women's game is taking time to develop. It's going to take time for professionalism to bed in, and for those skill sets to grow. And the English team's just a little bit ahead of the curve at the minute. but I'm sure they'll catch up. You know, there's talented rugby players all in the world. Like, one point though for the Red Roses, they can't seem to keep 15 on the pitch for the full 80.
Yeah.
It was an emotional roller
problem.
coaster for anybody that had sort of Amy Cockayne in their side. It was an emotional roller coaster because, like, yellow,
It really was.
try, brilliant,
Like-
yeah, red cards, yeah, oh crap, and yeah. So I think she still ended up in positive points overall. But yeah,
Yeah,
that
12.
wasn't great. When there was quite a bit of hype around her coming back in, you could
She
see
is
from like
excellent.
the women's sort of Six Nations put a sort of photo out on some of their posts like pre-game that she's back. Yeah, and to come out and sort of end up with what is red and your fancy team knackered. Luckily, like I think most of the sensible people in the world after the last 2 rounds, Captain Kildone, yeah, and that made up some points. I think.
Brings us nicely on to how did your guys DXVs get on? Because your fantasy teams, because I know Nye, you did do that, didn't you?
Yeah, so both running DXV League is up. So anybody playing the Women's Six Nations Fantasy, by all means, search up Dream 15 and you'll be able to see our fancy league. So I didn't do too bad. I think I dropped 2 places overall, but I think that was down to everybody else actually scoring quite high compared to the other rounds. I mean, like Chris said, we've said about the Red Roses, and for anybody that didn't pick sort of Dow, just breached back in again, had a great game. She's been a bit quiet on sort of fancy the last and Kildone. So anybody that sort of didn't pick them in their back 3 would have suffered quite highly over the weekend. But yeah, I did quite well. I think I did back. Yeah, second row, back row did pretty well for me. Yeah, calendar for Wales. I think she's been in every side I've ever had and never disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, not such a
Chris?
good week for me. I dropped to, I think I'm like 3rd from the bottom now. Expected a much bigger game from France, much bigger scoreline,
It's
and
not
just
too
didn't.
far.
Yeah.
It's not
So
too
I
far.
captained Kildone. I did captain
not-
Kildone.
It's not too far off where Sale are in the Premiership, mate.
It's a long running yet, mate. Running yet. Long running. Yeah, I think I had a couple of mistakes in selection. That budget is killing me though. Like the budget is rough, right?
Ruthless.
So in your like really good players who are making big impacts, you fill your team with 15 just about, and I'm playing sans super sub at the minute, boys. Like no 16th woman, I just can't afford it. I've got like 5 credits left, and I've got 15 on, and I'm like, okay, I got no one. It is so difficult to fill your team if you, particularly like I don't follow the PWR probably as closely as I should, just because I watch pretty much all the rugby there is available already. So without seeing that, it's really hard to find like the gems, right? So the people who undervalued maybe in the tournament, making debuts, etc. A la Faye Waboso, this Six Nations. If you'd watched him playing Exeter, you knew he was going to be good, and so you could get him in at a budget. But without that in the fantasy game, it's kind of tough. So I'm just going off their international performances, and they're all so expensive.
And it was really, I think, for the first, anyone like when I banged into the first round, I think both the England 10s, so Aitchison and Harrison, were the top 2 ranked. And I was kind of like, that's the first time I've ever seen in fantasy, like throughout the whole of like Six Nations World Cup, everything like
that your starter
first,
and your sub.
your second, like your second string 10 is still rated above everybody else's starting 10. And that's kind of like, and we talked about the Red Roses and sort of like their prowess in this. But I did notice that from like the start off, and I was like, Jesus, yeah, some of the points difference, I think, from, if you look at, I've always been intrigued with how much the sort of top starter costs and the bottom starter, because that's a sort of different. And yeah, in the women's game, that figure is so much bigger than what was in the men's for almost all of the positions, I think. And that probably goes into what is the players in the women's game. It's just that they're separated. But like Chris said, it makes selection yeah, so much harder.
Cool. And this week, guys, so since like last like Wednesday or so, what have we been up to? So Nye and he had a little trip to A&E, and I know we've been doing some stuff as well.
Yeah.
But do you want to talk about
Not really. It was an emotional time. No, so I yeah, similar to sort of last week. Nice sort of charity rugby game on Saturday, which was somebody first originally said that we've got a charity game in Shelford. So I was like, yeah, like I know Shelford. It's near Nuneaton, just on the road, 40 minutes. Yeah, I'll come down for a game. And then Friday night in the group chat, there was a few lads going, oh, sort of Cambridge is gleaming. And I was like, why are you staying in Cambridge? That's miles away. Only to find out Saturday morning that it's actually Shelford near Cambridge. And it was an hour and 45 minutes and not just 40 minutes down the road. So me and Kat, me and the wife went down. It was absolutely redders, actually. It must have been sort of plus 20, a lot warmer than it's been sort of recently. But yeah, 78 minutes, had a 2-minute breather because I was blowing. But yeah, I had that really, I say like bad moment, but a great moment for any rugby player. So when you sort of like stand up from a ruck and you see one of your fingers pointing in the wrong direction, and you get that sort of, it's a moment that you don't want, but also everybody wants that position where you're sort of on a pitch and you just sort of like look around at people as they look disgusted and sort of just and stick it back in yourself. And even though you're really crying inside, you take that opportunity to look as manly as possible on a rugby pitch. So yeah, little finger.
Even if your finger comes off at that point, you've just got to go like, whatever.
Yeah, little finger back in, carried on. And it wasn't until I think like Sunday morning when I woke up and then realised the top of the finger was actually sort of still pointing in the wrong direction. So a little trip down to A&E, they were absolutely lovely. 2 seconds of pain, 2 people holding onto my hand, little finger back in, x-rays. And all good now. Looking forward to some, I think we've got some more rugby coming up actually.
Nice. And so social media stuff, guys. We've got some pretty kind of like exciting news in the background, DXV wise, haven't we?
Yeah, just in terms of like, it's just stuff we've been working on to get actually like templates, standardizing, actually figuring out. Those of you who have followed us for a little while I know it'll come as a shock to many of you, but we're not professional at this. We're figuring out what we're doing as we go. So
just take a look at our social media. That's all I've got to say.
And it's getting progressively better. That's all I can say to you guys. So thank you for sticking with it. But yeah, we've worked with the designers to get some standard stuff to make it pop a little bit more and a little bit more slick and professional. So we've done some work around that. Dev has been continuing. So working on actually getting the site up and running, and we're nearly there. We're probably about 85% of the way there now. And speaking, if you were on some of those customer focus groups that we did last week, thank you very much. Made a huge difference to us, and actually getting some of that feedback was really good. But you'll have heard, if you were on them, that we're hoping to kind of launch this a little bit early for the semi-finals and finals of the Prem. So we're on track for that as it stands. Which is good news. You'll get a chance to play it for free, have a little bit of a test of it, take it out for a spin and see how it goes. Inevitably it breaks, and then we'll frantically try and fix it before August so we can launch it in time for the actual season. But that's been kind of the bulk of the work ongoing, and then a few other little bits in the background to make it good.
It is the social media stuff that is sort of like runs everything now, and it's crazy, and it must be horrifying for anybody starting, sort of like similar to yourself, is that you put a bit of time into something and sort of push it out, and you realise somebody's picture of a cat getting locked in a bin has got 40 times the amount of sort of likes your stuff is. And it's and we've talked about it, and we're trying to stick true to sort of fancy rugby, but I'm really looking forward on the social media side to when we have our own data and we have our own game, and that we can push out some really sort of valuable fantasy content. It's looking forward to getting a product in which you can sort of share a lot of stuff about. So it's all exciting. Like I said, just sort of slowly building until big time in which we get you to come on and play our game.
Cool. And next week's games and key players, guys. So we've got Gallagher Premiership round 15 back with a bang. Third place Saracens, ninth place Gloucester, first place Saints take on Tigers, who are in 7th. Chiefs 6th take on Bath 2nd. Bristol take on Falcons 5th and 10th respectively, and then
Sale take on Falcons.
Big up. I think it's Bristol. I think
Definitely
I could be wrong. I'm just going to check that. Bear with.
Yeah, for all of you listeners out there, this is how well prepared we are.
This is fair.
It's definitely
Say.
we never claim to be a professional podcast.
At least one of us knows our stuff.
Am I going to get fired?
I wouldn't say fired, but there's definitely chin a pint next time I see you.
Chris.
Or Chris is chin a pint.
You're wrong, mate. Chris, you're wrong, mate.
Chris just wants to see Sale play.
Chris is also wrong.
I am wrong. It's Sale Harlequins. You're right.
And we've got that video evidence now. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Bears 5th take on Falcons 10th, and Sale 8th take on the mighty Harlequins, who are sat in 4th.
Why did I think?
Any thoughts, guys? Any kind of big games, ones to watch, games that you aren't going to miss?
Bath game's interesting. I think anyone, and we've said like that top 4 condensed, right? There was quite a bit of space.
Repeat of the Champions Cup quarter final. Revenge time.
Revenge.
Yeah, and actually, if you look at it as well, like that's huge because the first, because in the table, actually 1 to 8 is only 12 points. You know, like Sale are sat on 37, Exeter at 6th on 40, and then Northampton at the top on 49. But 4th, Quins 42. So even Sale sat at 8, you know, is still only 5 points behind. I think Gloucester and Newcastle are pretty much out of the race. But it's anyone's game thereafter there.
I think the big one, I think that's a really good one to pick out, like the Bath Exeter. That'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they do around kind of squad selection as well. So obviously, those who've been in the Champions Cup this weekend, that's an extra game they've played. That's, you know, in the heat. That's a week's travel. That's, I mean, granted, it's only to France, but even so, it's a little trip, extra training, rest. Gloucester played an extra game against Ospreys. All that stuff kind of adds up. So it'll be interesting to see what team they field against each other, and whether, because like you said, no one can really afford to take the loss at this point. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's not like you can be like, oh, we'll have a punt this game and see how and hope for the best. But yeah, everyone kind of needs to chase it, because like you say, Bath lose to Exeter, that opens it up. Sale are definitely in that race. I think Sale have 100% prioritised the Prem. You saw it when they went into the Challenge Cup and fielded what was no disrespect to kind of Ospreys, but Sale definitely fielded not their like first choice 15. There are still some really strong names in there, and they got battered by Ospreys.
15,
who would be their usual starters, right? Yeah. So like no George Ford, for example, stuff like that. So they've definitely prioritized the Prem. So I'd expect a full strength Sale at home against Quins, which even then, like, Quins are looking, if the Quins have a day, that's just completely up in the air. So I'll definitely be watching that one. Saracens Gloucester, I think, is, again, not being disrespectful to Gloucester, but if you're a gambling man, you put money on Saracens, even with their thumping against Bordeaux. And they're going to, again, like, an angry Saracens is not a good team to play, particularly at the Stone X. Who have they just signed, by the way? They signed another winger recently that I was quite impressed with, because Lewington just announced his retirement.
Saracens?
Yeah, they signed someone quite interesting. Can't remember who it was off the top of my head. There's some really good matchups in there, actually. I think Exeter Bath probably the best game of the weekend. That little bit of kind of repeat of the Challenge Cup quarterfinal that knocked out Bath.
Yeah, you just get, and you get it's one of those feelings that
Sam
you still
Spink.
think that they can both sort of do it.
Yeah.
You just sort of, you're like, oh yeah, sort of look at the table and you sort of, yeah, not too bad, but yeah, you get the feeling that actually Bath have been pipped and they could be pipped, and yeah, it'd be really interesting.
Bath are a lethal team. Like you look at some of the stars in that team, and they're definitely contenders, right? For the top, not just for like the top four, but for the title. But no Finn Russell if he's still injured. That makes a huge difference, I think, to that team. Orlando Bailey's a quality player, but I just don't think he's not in the same kind of vein as Finn Russell necessarily. Not yet, anyway. So that makes a big difference. I always love watching Saints play as well. Like, I support Sharks, but Saints are probably my second team in terms of just I love the way they play even last season. Just all out attacking rugby, and then you throw some defense in that and it's good. So I'm fairly confident they'll maintain their place at the top of the table going in. And they've got some depth in that squad as well, so they can do some rotations without too much trouble.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Who's not back in Saints?
Yeah, it'd be tough not to at this point.
Yeah.
Like, you see them play and it's like fairly full. I mean, you look at that back line: Alex Mitchell, Finn Smith, Fraser Dingwall, Tommy Freeman, Ollie
Freeman and
Slightholme,
Dingwall were
Hendy,
phenomenal.
Furbank.
Yeah.
Like that's a dangerous back line. Like, not the biggest, right? Like, there's no really big ball carriers in there. I mean, Freeman's deceptively powerful, I think, and I really like him at 13. I think his move there is beneficial. I think that's, in my opinion, for what little it's worth compared to Phil Dowson and Sam Bestie, but that's probably his best position. More hands on ball, can run his really sharp lines, and with a little bit of extra weight and kind of a little bit extra timber he's got this season, he's looking a strong ball carrier. But they're just so dang like quick and smart, and like they organize so quickly in attack.
It was Dingwall and Freeman together. That partnership has grown. Like, if you watch that game and see how many passes go sort of just read so well, passes are just timed so well. Just them together individually, they're really good. But actually, just watching them sort of side by side, they were, the connection between them seemed to work really well, actually.
I'm really excited about Freeman coming through as well. I'm really excited about watching. Hopefully Baxter gets into the start for Quins. I don't know if he will. I think Joe Marler will probably come back in against Sale in their scrum. But Baxter, I put a little comment out on Twitter about like the future of the England scrum, and it is looking strong, boys. Like Finn Baxter, Poker Forjor, Alfie Fasikabon for Gloucester. You got Tarek Hafar coming through from Northampton, who's the only one who really troubled Hafar, Apoka Ford during his early run. There's some powerful front rows coming through, and some really, really good front rows. So that RFU initiative about the front row camps is doing well. So I'd be excited to see him play, how he gets on.
Yeah. And Six Nations on to round 4. So we've got England, Ireland, Italy, Scotland, Wales, France. Any kind of big games there? Any kind of thoughts, insights on who might win?
I think France, Wales. Again, France up there, 3 from 3. Wales at the bottom, 0 from 0. I think at this point it'd be a big shock if Wales were to come out and
doable though.
2-1. Yeah, not saying that the at times Wales and individual players in sort of Wales have shown their class and quality. I still think obviously it's a big sort of uphill battle for them. Again, you're always back in Red Roses. Ireland obviously put a score against Wales, but I think defensively England are phenomenal on attack, and I think to try and stop that would be they offer a lot more potency than sort of Wales do and would. I think if I'm honest, it sets it that final weekend where I think you see is it France, England on the last, at that you'd probably back both of them to be sort of 4-0 both teams by that point. It also sees, I think, pitch off for what should be sort of Wales, Italy sort of down the bottom. So I can't really see like Scotland. All right, suffered a big defeat, but yeah, it sets up for a really, really good final weekend, I think, of the Women's Six Nations. But I don't think we're looking at too many upsets this weekend.
I was gonna get tickets for the England-France game because I saw some available, but then I'm away that weekend, so I can't actually do it, which is gutting. But
So if you guys got like, kind of end it on a with some more insights, any key players that you guys are definitely going to have in your Six Nations kind of fantasy teams for this weekend, or is it going to be similar sort of fashion? Nye, we'll start with you, mate.
So yeah, I think there's again, I think the Red Roses are featured heavily in my high scoring positions, and I see no reason to sort of change any of that. Abby Dow's done quite well, but there's always I think to try and justify to put what is Breach, Dow and Kilden in your back three is quite hard to do. But I think, yeah, any one of them three I think is going to do well for you. I think Kilden and captaining Kilden has just become such a precedent for me that I'll just stick there. The back rows up near now, manager for like France has been phenomenal. She's a bit quiet sort of this week, but she's been great. Alex Callender for Wales has been sort of phenomenal on that back row. Always managed to get some really good points. Yeah, I think them again. There's some great options. There's people listed out of positions. So the sort of second manager that is, I think, still listed in the centres, but is playing on the sort of wing. There's some quality out there, but it really is. It's kind of where are you spending your money? I think the budget is so tight. I did similar to Chris. I sort of didn't pick a super sub in the end because I wanted to sort of spend that cash elsewhere. Yeah, be interesting to see.
I think the only change for me is I think I might go do the triple. I might do Breach, Dow, and Kilden. Stick Cavea in the back row. Just cover all the bases because it's a gamble, right? It seems to be two of the three. Like
which ones? Yeah.
Run it up. Yeah. So I'm getting all of them this time. They're all going in.
So basically, what we're saying to anyone who's watching this, go with what Nye has said. Don't listen to Chris because he's currently third from the bottom.
Just watch. Just wait. The rebound is coming, boys.
But
yeah, and Cabea's going back in. I took Cabea out this week. That was a mistake.
It's getting more expensive as well because again, sort of Kilden, her starting points, Breach, Abby Dow, like their starting points were sort of down at 18, but because they performed really well in the previous weeks, they only get like more and more expensive. So again, I think Kilden's up on 20.4, 20.1 for Abby Dow. Breach has gone up to 17.6. So again, that's a big, like just those three players on their own, like that's a big chunk of your budget. And again, I think it's we've said about the 10s before, where your second backup 10 is still more expensive than the next starter. And you've got the England back three in sort of Breach, Dow and Kilden are the three most expensive. And there is no way across sort of any of the Six Nations that we've, like, whether it's a World Cup, whether it's the men's Six Nations, men's World Cup, any of those fancy games, would you see a side with a back three so prolific that they take up the top three most expensive spots on a fancy game. But it is just sort of kudos to one, the way they're all playing, which is brilliantly, and two, I think the Red Roses' strength overall.
Watch this space. I'm committed now, boys. I'm doing the treble, the English back three. We'll see how we get on.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a note of that, mate, and we're going to ask you the same question next week.
We'll come back. I love the fact that Chris was also the one that pointed out the fact that England struggled to keep 14 on a pitch. So the fact that he's picked three England back three is also highlighted his chance to put one of them to go.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, with them three, the other two, even if one of them did pick up a yellow card, the other two are going to score enough points to counterbalance that, I think. So exactly. It's not a bad way.
It's almost helpful. You just concentrate your points.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that concludes another week of XV Rugby. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you aren't sick of us and you want more rugby focused content like this and terrible chat, then please follow us on any one or all of X, Facebook, and Instagram, where we post daily rugby insights and keep you up to date on our progress, ready for our launch in August this year. Thanks again, guys, and see you next week.